All right, guys, this is our flip book for linear equations. It's pretty much all we need to know besides table relationships for linear equations. So this is our title page right here. You can put your name on here or on the back. And then it's just going to kind of go through each section, and we're going to build from there. So our slope, you can add some little notes here, is our rise over run. Our rise is when we're going to end up going counting up, or sometimes you have to count down, up or down first, and then our run is always counting left or counting right or counting left. I'm going to do that real quick. Okay. So if I count up, that's positive, but if I count down, that's negative. If I count to the right, that's positive, but counting to the left, that's negative. So for this, they want you to find the slope of the line. You read your line, the graph of the line, left to right, just like everything else. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going left to right. This is the first point. I'm just going to label that A. And then this is my second point. That's my B. All right, so start from A. I have to count up or down to get to B. So to get to B here, I would actually, let me change my font here. I would count up 1, 2 units. Okay, so that's up 2. And then I would have to count from here to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is 5 units, and I went to the right. So since I went up 2 and then 5 to the right, okay, these are both positive. So this is positive 2 and positive 5. So my slope, and our symbol for slope, we can do this underneath here, is M. Actually, let me change that font. M is our symbol for slope. So my slope here is 2/5. And we're going to always write the simplified fraction representation of the slope. Okay. So go ahead and try number 2. Just by looking at this graph, hopefully we see that it's decreasing, so the slope has to be negative. If it's increasing, it's positive, but as if it's decreasing, it's negative. So I'm just going to see I got a point here. This will be the first point. I'm going to label that one A and B. So to count from the point, I would have to change the font here, go down. So this is down 6. Hopefully you counted that. And then you would have to go to the right 2. So if I'm doing down 6 and then to the right 2, down 6 is going to make this negative here, negative 6. So when I simplify this, hopefully you got your slope is negative 3. Okay. All right, so from there, finding your slope on a graph, we need this to write the equations of lines. Rise over run is the fastest way, I think the easiest way to do that. And then we're going to ask you to find the slope from 2 points. So you're going to need to have 2 order pairs in order to do that. This is our slope formula that they gave us here. Okay, so this is a formula we can use. And we did this on the last Alex assignment. So if you need to, I'm just going to extend the page. If you need to, we want you to, let me change my font, label your points. Make sure we understand how to label those. We have the first order pair would be x1 and y1, and your second order pair would be x2, y2. So when we plug it into the formula, our formula is the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So when we plug it in, the y values are on top. Let me just write it to the side here. So this would be negative 7, because that's my y2, minus 2. And then my x2 is 8, and we're going to subtract that from negative 4. Watch your sign. Okay, so this simplifies to negative 9 on top, and actually a positive 12 on the bottom. And then you need to remember that you can always reduce, simplify your fractions. Your slope has to be in simplified form. So our final answer, M, is -3/4. Okay. So I want you to try number 4, and let's just check your understanding. All right, hopefully you got the slope was 2. Just check over your work. I'm showing the setup and the simplified answer. All right, so from there, finding your slope, we want you to be able to use that to write your equation. And the fastest or the easiest form to do that in is our slope-intercept form. Let me scroll up. So the parts that we want to make sure we understand is in the slope-intercept, that is y equals mx plus b. Your m is your slope. That m should always be in front of the x. It's the coefficient of x. And your y-intercept is the b. Okay. So if I'm writing the equation for and slope-intercept from the graph, the steps, the things you need to find or pull off the graph. I'm going to write this down real quick. Let me change the font. Sorry. Is the first thing you want to find is the b, is the y-intercept. So go to the y-axis. That's this vertical line here. Find where the line touches that y-axis. And this number 5 here, our b equals a -2. So that's first. The second thing, you want to use your 2 points on the graph, okay, to find the slope. So you want to, let me undo this, find slope using rise over run. So I see here are my 2 points. I can count from my red point to this blue point here. My rise from this red point will be going up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a +4. And then my run would be to the right 1, 2, 3. That's a +3. So I now know that the slope here, my m, is 4/3. So now I'm just plugging it into the equation, plugging in the parts. So since the equation is y equals mx plus b for slope-intercept form, this is my m. My 4/3 would go in place of that. So that would be in front of the x. So 4/3, and then x, then plus b. My b was a -2. So this is actually going to turn into -2. And then there's our equation. So I do want you to try, I want you to try to follow these steps to find the equation of number 6 here. I'm going to pause and let you do it, and then you can check it. All right, hopefully you got y equals -1/3 x plus 4. Okay, I kind of showed here, I counted down 1 and then to the right 3. Since I went down, that's -1. So that makes it a negative fraction. And I can physically see this line is decreasing, so it's going to have a negative slope. All right, now we also want you to write in slope-intercept form if given in a different form. So these examples are in standard form. We want it in slope-intercept form because that is the easiest form to graph. So when putting into slope-intercept form, the first thing you're going to need to do, and I'm just going to write these little steps here, is move the x term. Okay, move the x term, and then second, we're going to have to, depending on if we have one, divide by the y. So the way this looks on this example here, number 7, 3x is the x term. To move it, you have to do the opposite, okay? So if it's positive 3x, we have to move it by doing -3x. So now we can move it to the other side of the equal sign. So that cancels, and leaving us with y equals -3x plus 5. Now, because this y does not have a coefficient, a number in front, I don't need to divide by y. I mean, you could, the coefficient is 1, but I don't need to divide. So this is my equation. So that's the first thing, so write the equation in slope-intercept form. Then they want us to graph it. When graphing in slope-intercept form, you want to do your y-intercept first. So the y-intercept is 5. So on the y-axis, we're going to plot a point at 5. So there's our point. And then we want to use our slope second. So if I look here, Okay. Your slope is just the number in front of x. So I want to use that slope of -3 to get another point. So that means my m is -3/1. So I would have to go down 3 to get a negative and to the right to get a +1. So I'm counting from this point down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then to the right 1. And there's my additional point. And then we're just going to draw a line through them. I'm just going to do my line tool here. And we're just drawing a line through those points. And then there's our graph. Okay, so let's see if we can go through the steps on 8. Hopefully we're starting off -2x. Oops. -2x here. Alright, we moved the x. Watch your sign here. This is -3y equals -2x minus 3. Now we have a coefficient, a number in front of the y, so now we're dividing everything by that number, -3. Okay, that cancels that coefficient. Now I get my equation. My equation is y equals the negative divided by negative makes this fraction positive. So this positive 2/3 x, and then -3 over -3 makes that a +1. So now we're just graphing this. To graph, we should be starting on the y-intercept, which is the 1. Our slope is the 2/3. Okay, so that means I'm counting. I'm going to write it over here. If it's 2/3, that means we're going up to the right 3. So counting up 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. There's our additional point. You can repeat that one if you want more points, or I can go down 2 and to the left 3. Okay, because we want our line to go through those points. So I'm just going to use this line tool to get. Okay, and there is our slope-intercept form. All right, so then we're going to go to our next tab, which is point-slope form. Okay, the things we need to recognize in this point-slope form that we're going to plug in these parts. You are going to have your slope. Your m is still your slope. Here in the point-slope form, that m is always in front of the parentheses. Okay, and then you're going to have points, x and y. So x, y, the x coordinate goes inside the parentheses. The y coordinate, the y1, goes in front of the equal sign. So what we're going to do here, we're going to write the equation in point-slope form. So just right off the bat, I'm hoping we can recognize that here, excuse me, is the point. It says a point, the line goes through this point of 2, -5. So this is my x1 and my y1. And then this is a slope of 4. So that means my m equals 4. So if my point slope form is this setup, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1, then what we're going to do is we are going to take this x1, which is the 2 here, and it's going to get plugged inside the parentheses there. We're going to take this -5, which is our y1, and it's going to go here. And then we're going to take our slope, which is our m equals 4, and that goes in front. All right, that goes in front of the parentheses. So we're just substituting the parts in. So this would be y minus a -5 equals 4 parentheses x minus 2. Now we have to simplify this, because if we have minus a negative, this is really simplified as y plus 5 equals 4 parentheses x minus 2. So because this problem says they just want the slope-intercept form, that is your slope-intercept form. You are done right there. Now if they ask you, and I'm going to scroll this down a little bit so I can have some more room. If they ask you to put it in slope-intercept form, because this is point-slope form, to do that, you would have to first distribute the 4, the slope. When I do that, we have y plus 5 equals 4x minus 8, and then solve for y. Get the y value by itself. We're just going to subtract the 5. So now my slope-intercept form is y equals 4x minus 13. I did this because I want you to understand that these two here whether it's point slope form or slope and intercept form, are the same equation. All right, now 10 is slightly different because we have a point, we have 2 points. We don't have a slope. So the first thing we have to do is use a slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to get that slope. So if I plug that in, the values in, my y2 should be the -5. So it'd be -5 minus 1 on top, 3 minus 0 on the bottom. This gets simplified to -6 over 3. So my slope is a -2. Okay, that's my m. I'm going to use my point. I'm just going to use the first point. So my point here is 0, 1. That's my x1 and y1. So now I'm just going to plug it into the formula. Y minus 1 equals that -2, parentheses x minus 0. This is point slope form. Now to put it in slope intercept form, you would need to distribute the -2. So y minus 1 stays equals now -2x. Anything times 0 is 0. So we're done there. And then we just need to get the y by itself. So we have to add 1. So slope intercept is y equals -2x plus 1. Okay. So now, besides writing the equation, if I give you the point and the slope, I want you to be able to write the equation from a graph or graphing from point slope form. So to me, on this, and then we're going to probably wrap it up on this one for this part of the video. They want to write the equation. It says point slope form, and it says use the left-hand point to write the equation. Okay, the left-hand point, meaning if I'm reading from left to right, is this point here. So that point is at the order pair 2, 5. So I'm going to start off with my point as 2, 5. Then what I also need is the slope. So I'm going to use the graph to find that slope. I can just count from this point down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, so that's -6. And then to the right, 1, 2. So I have a -6 over 2, which reduces to -3. So now all I'm doing is plugging into the formula. The equation here would be y minus 5 equals -3, parentheses x minus 2. There's the point slope form. So let's make sure you got that down. Now we're going to have to pull the point and the slope to graph this, okay? Remember, let me just write this under here. Point slope form looks like this. Y minus y1 equals to m, which is x minus x1. So in order to graph, I need the slope, the m. And I can get the m because it's always in front of the parentheses there. So there it is right there. So my m equals 2/3. And then what I also need to graph is a point. My points are the x1 and the y1. The x1 is 4, but when I pull it out, I gotta do the opposite. That's -4. My y1 is staying like -1, but that'll be +1. All right, and now we're just graphing. So I'm gonna see if you can graph.